Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Charlene Israel.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. Extreme weather has been hammering the nation from coast to coast, from flooding in the west to brutal snow and ice in the east. Many Americans have been dealing with power outages and dangerous conditions. We begin in the west, where intense rain and surging water have already uprooted trees and sent them crashing onto cars in Northern California. Utility poles also came down, taking power lines with them.
Heavy rains, we have measured about 12 inches of rain so far.
And it's still a wintry mess from the Pacific Northwest to Utah, with floods, mudslides, and avalanches. Then, as we move from Kansas to the Gulf Coast to Georgia, millions are bracing for another round of the winter's wrath.
I just hope that we don't get in the same mess we did last time.
The mayor of Atlanta is taking no chances after a disastrous reaction the last time around. 2 weeks ago, the city ground to a screeching halt over just a few inches of snow. It left hundreds of drivers stranded on highways, and children were forced to take shelter in their schools overnight. Now the city is treating key roads and bridges ahead of the storm's arrival.
This has been the longest. This is outrageous.
Even as another storm approaches, thousands of people are still without power, from Maryland to Philadelphia. An ice storm knocked out their electricity last Wednesday, and then they got hit with several more inches of snow last night.
It's just a bad winter. Everybody's tired of it.
That same snowstorm led to a terrible bus crash in southwestern Pennsylvania Sunday, sending more than 20 people to the hospital. And to the north, extreme cold has frozen the Great Lakes, causing the largest ice coverage since 1996. Many Americans are now praying, like this 4-year-old, begging for relief.
Jesus, make it warm!
Jesus, make it warm indeed. Despite all the extreme weather out west, the massive rainfall that has happened in California has not been enough to make much of a dent in the state's severe drought.
The Justice Department is extending new federal benefits to same-sex couples. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder is issuing a memo today that recognizes gay marriages to the greatest extent possible under the law. Under the new rules, the same-sex couples would receive recognition in federal legal matters, such as bankruptcies, prison visits, and survivor benefits. The privileges will be extended to gay marriages even in states where same-sex marriage is illegal. Gay couples in the military would also be afforded the same benefits as heterosexual couples.
This means that in every courthouse, in every proceeding, and in every place where a member of the Department of Justice stands on behalf of the United States, they will strive to ensure that same-sex marriages receive the same privileges, the same protections, and the same rights as opposite-sex marriages under federal law.
Holder's action is the latest application of a Supreme Court ruling that struck down a provision in the Defense of Marriage Act defining marriage as the union of one man and one woman.
The Obama administration is aggressively pursuing young, healthy adults to sign up for the president's health care plan. They want young people to pay for insurance because participation from the so-called young invincibles is crucial to Obamacare's success. But the administration is far from reaching its goal in that age group. The new health care law is experiencing slower than expected enrollment. Young invincibles are adults ages 18 to 24. And they do not appear to be on board with Obamacare. In previous enrollment data, young people made up only about 1/4 of those who had signed up for the health care exchanges. The White House has downplayed the lag, saying they're expecting invincibles to enroll toward the end of the 6-month sign-up period. But as the March deadline approaches, there's a new sense of urgency.
Tonight, I ask every American who knows someone without health insurance to help them get covered by March 31st.
According to a Kaiser Family Foundation study, about 40% of new enrollees need to be young and healthy to balance out the high cost of covering those who are older and sicker. But many young people are opting out of the high cost of coverage under the president's new health care law.
It's very expensive for them. On average, we're seeing premiums will increase 169% across the board. Young people realize that Obamacare is taking the young and healthy to pay for the sick and older Americans. And it's just not something that's fair. We're leveraging our future.
As the White House waits for more young people to enroll, grassroots efforts pushing people to sign up for the president's health care plan are popping up.
We're trying to make sure it feels urgent all the time. And at least in our experience, enrollment's picked up a lot since January 1st.
Workers and volunteers are now targeting the so-called young invincibles by spreading out across the country, drawing on grassroots campaigning techniques the Obama administration learned in the past 2 elections.
Anybody have any questions about health insurance?
But so far, they're still short about 1/3 of young and healthy enrollees they need. A recent Gallup poll finds 26% of uninsured people under the age of 30 intended to pay the $95 fine rather than enroll in the president's health care plan.
Meanwhile, stories of people having issues finding affordable health care continue. A Louisiana man says he makes too much money to be eligible for government assistance, but his only option in the Obamacare marketplace is more than he can afford. Caitlin Burke reports.
Robert Reed says he's lost in the gap.
We make too much money and too little money at the same time, so we've fallen into that gap where we cannot get coverage.
Reed falls into the category between government assistance and private insurance. His state says he should be covered, but he can't find insurance he can afford.
I withdrew from law school. Now I'm just going to have to go get a job that pushes my salary up so that I can get my family covered.
The problem appears to affect residents in the 26 states that didn't accept a federal expansion of Medicaid coverage. It puts people like Reed in a position where they make too much money to qualify for Medicaid and too little to get subsidies through Obamacare. The Department for Health and Hospitals says they're trying to create state-level programs to fix the problem. But after a recent hospital stay, Reed says he needs a solution now.
I got my first hospital bill for $17,000. It's just the first. So we haven't even gotten the doctors and the specialist bills yet. I'm going to be paying for this forever.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Craft store giant Hobby Lobby is filing a Supreme Court brief today over the Obamacare contraception mandate. The family-owned chain of stores objects to the rule that requires employers to subsidize birth control as part of employee health care benefits. They argue the mandate violates their religious beliefs. About 40 other companies have filed suit over that mandate. The Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty is representing Hobby Lobby. The Supreme Court will decide whether the religious views of companies' owners can trump a government mandate.
Planned Parenthood is paying $2 million to the family of a botched abortion victim. In 2012, Tanya Reeves bled to death after a botched abortion at a Planned Parenthood in Chicago. The Thomas More Society calls the payment hush money. Last year, the group filed a complaint requesting an investigation into the clinic responsible for the botched abortion, but no action has been taken. So the society is renewing its call for stronger abortion clinic inspection and regulation in Illinois. They say the money is a slap in the face to every woman who walks through the doors of the nation's largest abortion provider.
It is another sign of the time. Soon you may be able to pay by hand, literally. WWR-TV reports that 2 friends in New Jersey have come up with a system that links your credit card information and other payment methods to your palm. The system is called Pulse Wallet. The technology scans the patterns of your veins in your palms, and then you can use that information to confirm your identity when you pay for something at a checkout or elsewhere. By using a biometric payment terminal, the devices are set for mass production in the spring.
Coming up, a time for choosing, why Ronald Reagan's message is still resonating today.
North Korea has withdrawn its invitation for U.S. officials to visit imprisoned American missionary Kenneth Bae. The State Department has called for Bae's immediate release. Bae has been held by the communist regime for more than a year now. North Korean officials jailed him for so-called anti-government acts back in November of 2012 when he was leading a tour group there. North Korea is now refusing to allow officials to visit Bae in protest of upcoming regularly scheduled joint military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea.
Filipino authorities have released an Ohio pastor and missionary. His Facebook page shows that Tom Randle arrived home last week. It also states that all charges against him have been dropped. Authorities were holding him in connection with a human trafficking case at a Filipino orphanage that he founded. The Christian Post reported that 31 orphans there say they were routinely raped. Liberty professor, law professor, and child abuse expert Boss Chividian tells CBN News he hopes the focus will now turn to helping investigators learn the truth.
The leadership of the orphanage has a legal and moral duty to fully cooperate with that and to communicate that publicly, to let people know that we are grieved by these allegations. We are grieved by the very thought that these precious children may have been hurt and abused in our care.
Joe Coffey, lead pastor at Randle's church, said in a statement, "We remain concerned for the orphans without a home to return to in Lucena City, and we will do all we can to care for them."
50 years ago, American voters faced similar conditions to what our nation is facing now. Ronald Reagan explained what was at stake in a now famous speech urging the public to elect Senator Barry Goldwater as president.
That's right. The address marked the beginning of a new conservative movement. And as Heather Sells reports, it was the focus of this year's Ronald Reagan Symposium at Regent University.
Thank you and good evening.
Before he was president, Ronald Reagan presented A Time for Choosing. The speech was given in 1964, but many of the issues sound very 2014.
We haven't balanced our budget 28 out of the last 34 years. We've raised our debt limit 3 times in the last 12 months. We're against forcing all citizens, regardless of need, into a compulsory government program.
What Reagan essentially did was to cast a vision of 2 starkly different worldviews. And many here at this symposium believe those views are still being fiercely debated today.
The reason it resonates now is we have a sense of having lost our way.
For Reagan, the threat was always the encroaching arm and coercive arm of government. So that, things change and they stay the same.
Ronald Reagan was speaking boldly. It might not have worked out after what he said. Maybe his political career would be over. But he felt he had to say the truth. It was called A Time for Choosing because it was a time for choosing.
Mr. Ronald Reagan.
In fact, the speech launched Reagan's political career. Soon after, he ran for governor of California. And it propelled the ideas of an emerging conservative movement onto the national stage. Unintentionally, of course, it also foreshadowed today's growing concerns over government control and loss of freedom.
Our natural unalienable rights are now considered to be a dispensation of government, and freedom has never been so fragile.
Reagan correctly saw that if you don't institutionally and culturally restrain government and its role in our lives, it will, by default, gravitational pull, just assume a greater and greater role, and that just means the erosion of freedom.
Debate over the speech at this year's symposium drew academics and students, but also many who simply realize how relevant its truths are today. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Up next, she's known on the internet simply as the brave German woman. And this phone video of her has gone viral. Find out what she did and why when we come back.
Islam is still growing in power and influence across Europe.
And in Germany, one Christian woman has taken a very public stand against it. In this CBN News exclusive, Dale Hurd brings us her first television interview.
It was supposed to be an interfaith concert to bring Christianity and Islam together. But when the Muslim imam began his call to prayer, he was interrupted by a small woman in the balcony proclaiming that Jesus Christ is Lord of Germany and saying, "I break this curse." She also invoked the name of Martin Luther and warned the audience that what was happening was a lie. The video went viral, and this mysterious Christian lady became known on the internet simply as the brave German woman. It happened at the Memorial Church of the Reformation in the Rhineland city of Speyer, built to honor Martin Luther. This isn't just a church. It's a monument to the Protestant Reformation and a memorial to the spiritual transformation of Germany as a nation. And it was at this spiritual landmark that a Muslim imam was invited to give the call to prayer in a concert. When the brave German woman, whose real name is Heidi Mundt, heard about the event, she prayed.
I was asking Jesus, I said, Lord, shall I go there? And there was when I have to drive 1.5 hours, so I think about, is it worth to go or can others go? And so this is, I think, a human laziness, yes?
She grabbed her German flag emblazoned with the words, "Jesus Christ is Lord," and she went to the concert, still not sure what she would do when she got there.
Till the imam started with his shouting, I did not really know what to do. I had my thoughts, but I was not sure. I was just prepared for what God wants me to do.
Then the Muslim call to prayer began, and Heidi said she felt something rising up inside her.
I would call it an holy anger. And then I rose my flag, and I was proclaiming that Jesus Christ is Lord over Germany.
Jesus Christus allein ist Herr über Deutschland. Ich zerbreche diesen Fluch.
And by purpose, I broke this curse, because this Allahu Akbar, they say with it, only Allah is the Lord. Yeah, He is Lord, He is God, and the only God. And I broke this curse in this church, and I broke it over my country.
And she repeated the words of Martin Luther in 1521, after he refused to recant his faith in Scripture alone. Here I stand. I can do no other.
Und ich stehe hier und ich kann nicht anders. Es ist die Kirche von Martin Luther. Ich stehe hier und ich kann nicht anders. Das ist ein Konzert für den Frieden. Nein, ist es nicht. Allahu Akbar wird gerufen, wenn gemordet wird. Lasst euch nicht täuschen. Lasst euch nicht täuschen. Es ist eine Lüge.
She was thrown out of the church.
They should have thrown the imam out of the church and not me, because I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, but he serves another God. This Allah is not the same God, and this is not the truth. This Allahu Akbar, so I think in general most of us know they use it when they kill people. This is, for me, it's a worship to an idol. Yeah, to their God. It's a worship, and they bring this blood offering to their God. And when the Muslims call Allahu Akbar in a church, that means this church is not a church anymore, it's a mosque.
With Heidi at the concert was Kamel and Marian. Before coming to Germany, Kamel lived in the Muslim world, and he told us that an imam has no place in a church.
Islam is one of the reasons for persecution. Muslims have persecuted me. They don't want me to tell others that Jesus Christ is my savior.
Marian belongs to an anti-Islamization group calling itself the White Rose, taking the same name as the World War II anti-Nazi resistance group, shown in the film Sophie Scholl, The Final Days.
Islam is inhuman, the same as in the Nazi time. For me, personally, there is no difference. We want to show Germany and the world that we will not bow down to the slow Islamization of our country.
Heidi knows that her first television interview could place her in even greater danger.
People ask me, do you have fear? Are you afraid of the Muslims? And I only can say, no, I'm not afraid of them. I know my God, the living God of the Bible, can protect me as long as He wants. When my time is over, I will go to Him.
An evangelist by gifting, Heidi grew up as an atheist in communist East Germany, but now as a believer. Her burden and her ministry is for the spiritual rebirth of Germany.
I feel I have to protect my country and my people. I'm only a little woman, but I feel I have to protect them.
Dass so jemand hier sprechen kann wie Hitler! Ich schäme mich! Wo seid ihr? Warum steht ihr nicht auf in unserem Land? Warum nicht?
Many people associate Germany with the Nazis, but Germany was once a base for world missions, sending missionaries to Africa, Korea, and to America. Heidi Munt is trusting God to do a miracle in what today is a very wealthy, and some would say, spiritually dead nation.
Well, nothing is impossible for my God. Nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. From a human point of view, I feel that our country is lost. It's already lost. It's done. But I trust God that He has a plan A. and that my country is not lost, that he will reach us and he will come and change the whole situation.
Dale Hurd, CBN News in Western Germany.
Well, Ephraim, Valentine's Day is a few days away, and some Vermont preschoolers are already preparing.
Indeed, they are. The kids are making a special card for a very deserving Valentine, a soldier serving in Afghanistan. The preschoolers are all ages between the ages of 3 to 5, so they might not understand the reality of deployment. But one thing their teachers make sure they know, soldiers sacrifice a lot for our freedom. Some of the kids even have family members serving overseas.
We've been talking about it all week long, and some of the children actually have family members that have been deployed and understand.
You do arts and crafts, take one day and do cards or letters or something, and I'll ship them over for you. And I said, these guys are going to love it, and this is perfect.
It is perfect and beautiful. The Valentine surprises will include cards and sweet treats for the military member and his crew. The kids are sending the Valentines through the program Operation Adopt a Soldier. Very nice.
I
out.
love it. Some pretty
Beautiful.
good snacks in there, too. I saw some
nice.
M&Ms.
Hefty stash.
Well, that's going to do it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
Take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you join us next time. Make it a marvelous Monday, everybody.